Welcome, I'm Chef Deborah from Roca's Bakery in Greensboro, North Carolina, and welcome to my kitchen today. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook. Welcome, and today we're going to be doing a very traditional dessert called a Pavlova. And a Pavlova is a meringue cake. It's very French and it's very traditional, and we're going to reintroduce it to the world today. So we're going to be using some fresh berries, and we're going to be making a triple berry sauce to go with the Pavlova. So we're going to start with the sauce first, so that's out of the way, and then we're going to go ahead and make the meringue cakes. With about 1 cup, a little over 1 cup of fresh berries. And if you don't have fresh berries, like our grocery store locally did not have, you can actually do a frozen mixed berry blend, which works just fine. So we're going to go ahead and add this to our blender or a food processor, whichever. A blender works fine if you don't have a food processor. And then we're going to take a 1/4 cup of boiling water if you're using the frozen fruit like we are today, and a 1/2 cup of sugar. And we're going to put those together. Real quick, doesn't take long. And then to that we're going to add a cup of raspberry jam, or like for me, I'm using my homemade orange berry jam, which will go well with the mixed berry that we have here today. But if you don't have an orange berry jam, which is kind of a hybrid jam that I created, raspberry jam is what you would probably need to go with here. And we're also going to add, and this is an option, our Chambord, which is a raspberry liqueur. We need 1 tablespoon of raspberry liqueur. Again, you can leave this out if you don't want to add any liqueur to your sauce, but it does actually make it taste really wonderful. And our sauce is done. So now if you are using fresh berries, what I would like for you to do, if you're making the berry sauce, is to put the berries, the water, and the sugar in a saucepan and cook them on the stove for about 3 minutes. Since I added boiling water to the sugar here and we pureed it, we don't have to do that because we use the frozen fruit. So we kind of skipped that step. So if you are using fresh fruit, please just cook it on the stove for about 3 minutes with the sugar and the water, and you're good to go. So what we have now, we're going to start with our Pavlova, and it is basically a meringue, but to the meringue we're going to be adding cornstarch, we're going to be adding vanilla, and we're going to be adding wine vinegar. And I've got a champagne vinegar here today, which I got in our local grocery store in Greensboro, and it adds a real nice mild flavor. So we do have 2 unusual ingredients. If you've made meringue before, it's not your typical grandma's meringue. It's going to be a little bit different. So in our mixer bowl, with our whip attachment, we do have 4 extra large eggs, and they need to be room temperature so you can get the maximum whip or the height out or volume out of the eggs. We'll add 1 cup of sugar gradually into the eggs, and once the eggs get whipped to a stiff peak until they're nice and glossy, we will take them off the mixer. We'll fold in the cornstarch, the vanilla, and the vinegar. So we're going to go ahead and whip. So our egg whites are done. It took about 3 to 4 minutes, so we want a nice stiff peak, and this is what we want to see, because we're going to get our sheet pan out and some parchment paper. We're going to draw circles like it's art class, and let me get the last little bit of this out here, and then we'll go ahead and form our little Pavlova or meringue cakes. Now these get baked in an oven at 180 degrees for about an hour and a half, and then we leave the oven door shut. We don't peek. And then once we come at the 1.5 hour mark, turn the oven off and leave the Pavlova in the oven for another hour to dry out completely. So we're going to go ahead and get this out here. I'm going to go ahead and pull the sheet pan, and we'll get our parchment paper, and we'll be back in just a minute. So we've got our parchment paper out, our baking sheet. So what we're going to do now is we're going to finish the meringue. So this is our cornstarch, 2 teaspoons of cornstarch. We're just going to gently sift over the top. We're not going to put all of it in at once. Again, so it can be evenly distributed, and we're just going to fold. You don't have to worry too much about the eggs collapsing at this point because it's a stiff meringue, but you don't want to be heavy-handed when you're folding. As light as you can to mix everything in for the meringue. The cornstarch kind of sticks in there a little bit, so we want to be sure to get all the last little bit of it out. And we'll just go ahead and fold that in. Then we're going to take our half a teaspoon of vanilla and our 1 teaspoon of champagne vinegar and just fold that in as well. You can smell that champagne in the vinegar. It's an odd smell to have with meringue, but it does work. So we want to be sure, especially if you're using a KitchenAid mixer, you have that little divot in the bottom of your bowl. You want to be sure you get down deep enough. See, you get vanilla and the vinegar so that it's evenly distributed through the eggs so that the eggs bake nice. And that's it for the meringue. This is another one of those very traditional but unusually very easy French desserts. Usually French desserts are, the pastries and stuff are pretty complicated, but this is one of those easy ones. So while that is sitting here resting for a second, we're going to go over here to our parchment paper. And this is something you don't have to do, but I suggest that you do, only to have an evenly made cake. So this is about an 8-inch round. The only reason I'm using an 8-inch and not a 9-inch round today is because I wanted to show you how to make little mini pavlovas for individual servings, so that if you want to serve just a small party of 4 or 6, or even just you and your spouse or your children, you can see how to do that. So that's why I'm doing it this way. But normally this will do like 1 9-inch cake, but we're doing the 8-inch, and we just want to take a marker and make a line. And we can just go ahead and, it's my little Charlotte pan. And this is a little like a 5-inch disposable. And again, and you can make them as big or as small as you want. I mean, it's your Pavlova cake, so I think it's only going to make about that many. And now we want to flip it over because we don't want to have any magic marker on our Pavlova. So we want to be sure that we flip it over. Now, one of the things with this meringue is that it is safe to eat for pregnant women or people that are immune suppressed. A regular meringue that Grandma used to make is not a cooked meringue, so that it wasn't safe for pregnant women to eat, especially because of the salmonella possible contamination, which is why our bakery only uses Italian meringue and everything, because it is a cooked meringue so that all of our customers can eat it safely. But this is going to be baked in the oven, so we don't have to worry about the safety factor of uncooked egg whites. So just a little health note there, especially for our mommies to be that are, wanting to enjoy things like this. We want you to be safe for you and your baby. We're just going to scoop this out, and then we're going to go ahead and spread it. Now you can use a piping bag if you want to do that. And you can pipe this out as well, but I have found this to be pretty easy to do this with a spatula. You just want to press it down gently in the center and just press it towards the outside. And what I like to do, because as a chef in a restaurant and making these for our guests, I like to have a little well in the center where we can put the berries, rather than just laying them on top and having everything run off. I like to make a little well in the center so that it can hold the berries really nicely. So you can make this smooth, you can make little peaks. This is your cake, so you can make it look like a volcano. The kids will have a blast with this. This is like working with Play-Doh. They can make this and enjoy it and put all kinds of fresh fruit in it. And it reminds me of that movie. It was a sci-fi movie. It wasn't E.T. The aliens came and it was back from the 80s. Anyway, I can't remember the name of it. The name escapes me, but he was contacted by the aliens, and he kept using mashed potatoes, building this little mound that was out in the desert where they were going to land. And Richard Dreyfuss was in that movie. And every time I make pavlova, I think of that movie just because of what I'm doing here. Very old classic sci-fi flick. So you can, on these little individual pavlovas, they're not going to be as deep, so you could probably just spread them out like this and maybe just make a tiny little divot in the center. This one's a little bit close, but you can get the general idea of what I'm doing. So if you're making little individual pavlovas, or if you want to make one big stack pavlova, you can easily double the recipe and make it completely flat. And then you can put berries and whipped cream in between the layer. You have a pavlova, then you have the whipped cream, then you have the berries, then another pavlova, more whipped cream and berries, and you have almost like a stack layer cake, but it's a pavlova meringue cake. So you can do it that way as well. But we're going to do it this way because this is the more traditional way. So we want to introduce you to that first. So now that we've got our pavlovas shaped and on the tray, we're going to put them in a 180-degree Fahrenheit oven for 1.5 hours. Turn the oven off at 1.5 hour mark and leave them in for another 1 hour, door closed, no peeking. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and we'll be right back. So our pavlovas have baked, and one of the things and the miracles of TV is, we can have everything ready very quickly. So I did earlier today, I did 4 small pavlovas and a large 9-inch pavlova. So you can see we're going to zest a little bit more lemon in here. This is about 2 cups of fresh sliced strawberries and about a cup of fresh blueberries. Now you can use a cup of fresh raspberries in here as well. We do have raspberries in our sauce. And because pavlova is such a special dessert, even though it's a really easy dessert to make, I want to plate it on some crystal and some china. So this is our sauce that we made earlier, and I have it as a matter of service. You can serve it in a nice little crystal dish, or if you want to do things home down, you can put it in just a regular porcelain gravy boat and serve it like that as well. So the larger pavlovas can be a little tricky to plate. So I do have my cake, get another spatula here. See, hopefully it won't stick and crumble all up. But this is what meringue cakes do. They kind of crumble a little bit, especially the larger ones. Just so that you can see what will happen to yours as we slightly move it off and don't worry, it is, and I'll just take one of these sides off so you can see. Now this is the shell, and this is what it's supposed to look like and what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be fragile. And as you can see, the interior here, and my hands are clean, is nice and soft and marshmallowy. That's exactly what you want to see. So everything was done right here on this particular one. And this one too has been sitting for a little bit. So a fresh baked one, fresh out of the oven when it's been cooled, probably won't be quite as fragile, just so that you know. So let me get our whipped cream. I'll be right back. So ahead of time, I went ahead and whipped some cream, sweetened it lightly with a little bit of powdered sugar and some vanilla. Make it nice. You don't have to whip it too stiff. You don't want big, stiff whipped cream, but we want to layer the whipped cream in here. And you almost can't see it because it's the same color as the meringue, but you need that nice creaminess on top of the marshmallowy. And you just push it to the edge and fill in any of the little gaps. And then we're going to take some of our fruit. This is just so wonderful. Such a wonderful dessert. Now, if you don't want to make the sauce, you absolutely do not need the sauce. I did sugar this fruit with about, 3 or 4 tablespoons of sugar so that it sweetened up and it started making some of its own juices, which is always a good thing when you have some pavlova, and especially if you're not making the sauce. And then all we do now is we take the sauce and we just drizzle it over. And it's just such a delicious, light, airy dessert. We want to let it go ahead and run down the crevices, make it look just beautiful. And then of course we have to add some mint as garnish. I always have to add a little bit of mint to make it just look beautiful. And this is our 9-inch Pavlova cake with triple berry sauce. Beautiful, isn't it? We'll cut into that in just a minute. So I want to show you how to plate the smaller Pavlovas into a double stack. So these are about 6-inch. When they bake, they got about 6 inches. So we're basically going to do the same thing. And as you can see, there's no divots in the center of this, so it's going to be a stack cake. Now you can use this to feed like 4 people. So if you want to make half a batch of meringue, you can certainly do that. And you can either do a single or you can do a double layer. So we'll want to do some sauce. And then we'll put another layer on top of that and just lightly press just till it sticks. And we're going to do the same thing. More whipped cream, more berries, and more sauce. Doesn't it look fabulous? I think it looks great, and this is a great dessert. And if you've never tried meringue, and I was always one, I never liked meringue as a kid because all I had was grandma's meringue, the kind that got watery on the lemon meringue pies, and it didn't foot the bill for me. And so I was always like, nah, I don't want to try that, Mom. Thanks anyway. But as I got older, I started branching out a little bit and learned how to enjoy meringues. We make a lot of meringue cookies in the bakery, especially at Christmas time. And this makes a beautiful presentation, doesn't it? Beautiful presentation on a nice piece of china. And you have a very elegant dessert. But if you want to do country style, you can get a plain white porcelain, just a regular plate, and you can certainly put it on that and make it a little more approachable, not quite so fancy. But I always told my kids, if we're going to do a dessert this simple, put it on a really pretty plate because it makes all the difference in the world. So let's cut into our Pavlova and see what it looks like inside and try some. And we serve this up almost like a pie. So let me do the big one first. Let me grab a plate here. The nice thing about filming in your own kitchen is you can just grab something real quick if you need it. And this always falls apart, but this is what the inside of it looks like. And let's go ahead and cut the other one so we can see what that's going to look like. And so you can see the double stack. Excuse me for turning my back to you. But it will cut a little bit messy, and that's just the nature of this type of dessert. So let me just cut a big chunk out of this here and see what we got. There we go. So it cuts like a pie or like a cake, however you want to call it. There we go. So that's our double stack Pavlova and our single 9-inch Pavlova. A wonderful, traditional, very easy, very simple, family-friendly to make dessert that will absolutely delight the meringue lovers in your family. This is Chef Deborah from Rocha's Bakery in Greensboro, North Carolina. Don't forget to visit us on our Instagram, YouTube channel under Chef Deborah, our Facebook under Rocha's Bakery, or our webpage at rochasbakery.com. Until next time, bon appetit.